Menon. The idea of Costford took root when Achutta Menon showed interest in the alternative building technologies promoted by Baker. Today, the organization carries forward Baker's philosophy.
Costford is basically, it's called Center of Science and Technology for Rural Development. So this was basically started by our Chief Minister of Kerala, ex-Chief Minister Sri Achutta Menon. So it was his vision, along with one Mr. Chandradatt, who was teaching in a Polytechnic in Thrissur. So these two people started up this organization, and then housing, of course, came into it as an important part. And at that time they met Mr. Baker, and they got interested in his work. So then he was also incorporated into this organization, and he brought in his ideas, and they were very impressed that you could build like this and so on. So then that thing completely took over everything else. They were a sort of NGO doing other tribal work and things like that, but slowly housing factor completely overtook everything else, and Costford started concentrating on doing housing. So that is what they are doing now primarily.
One of the buildings built by Baker that has caught the attention of many is a Center for Development Studies. The sprawling 10-acre campus has been built in Trivandrum and is an excellent example of how money saved in construction can be put to better use.
In the beginning, Dr. Raj and Achutta Menon wanted to make this center, and he called Laurie Baker to do it. Then also when they started it and when they finished it, the amount which they thought about the building was, the actual amount was very less, and the rest of the amount they used for purchasing books, which is an ideal thing for an institution like CDS. CDS, it's a social science center, and he tried to implement his philosophy regarding his education. Like it's in the CDS, it is all there. You can see a lot of informal interaction spaces, the connecting spaces, and then that design itself, the entire strength of CDS is it's a design. But personally, I feel it. Like the main center is the library, which symbolic, like that is the biggest, that should be the biggest area, that is the big boss, library. And then the director, even director doesn't have his own toilet, the attached toilet with him. Like all people has to use the same toilets, common toilets. Then he found it good, because the toilet will be clean. Even if the big boss is director is using the same toilet, definitely it will be clean.
Mr. Laurie Baker was a man full of creativity. In his spare time, he liked to paint, draw sketches, and even cartoons. He's also authored several books on architecture.
Then as the time went on and health started deteriorating more and more, then he mainly concentrated on doing things like, as I told you, cutting mango patterns out of different colored paper and making collages out of that. So it became more that kind of an activity, a sort of an activity of making things where you could cut and stick. So he still could use his faculties, using his hands to cut it into shapes and all that kind of thing. So that went on for a long time, and as I told you earlier, he had made over, I would say, more than 500 different collage like things of mango patterns, which as I told you, each one was different. Every day he would make one or two. That was the target. A minimum of one should be done. So this sort of a thing he used to do. That kept him occupied.
Baker's love for nature and the peace inherent in it found another expression as well, in painting. His paintings adorn the walls of his home, with each speaking of his love of nature. And the Himalayas that were his home for 16 years before he moved to Kerala. He also liked to draw cartoons.
He was basically also an artist, so painting and drawing, sketching, all these things were things which he used to do, I mean, particularly sketching, I think, because he always found it easier to express himself in drawing than in maybe communicating like that. So particularly when he came to Kerala to communicate with the local masons and people like that, the language was a problem. So the easiest way was to just take his pack of cards out of his pocket and sketch and show them, so that was a way in which he could communicate much better. So sketching, I think, was one of his favorite things. He had a very great sense of humor. I think his sense of humor is his success, because initially when he started out work here in Kerala, there was a lot of opposition from the engineering community, architecture community, everybody. So I think he overcomes all these problems by looking at it all from a humorous point of view. So I think that is the thing that has impressed me most about him is his sense of humor and how he can cope with a difficult situation by looking at it in a humorous way. So that ultimately takes the form of expression in cartoons. So any aspect of life he will look at it in a funny way. I mean, like how in Kerala we wear this mund. So he did a series of cartoons on the different ways in which these mund is worn. Some people wear it, in different methods are there to wear. So one full series was done on how to wear mund.
A man of many paths, Baker also authored several books on nature-friendly architecture. A unique thing about his books is that they are all published in his own handwriting, as are the illustrations. The books are written in simple language. Stargazing was also another passion of his.
He was always interested in, he had a very full knowledge about birds and about the stars and the sky and the movements of the various heavenly bodies and things like that. So he was into that astronomy also. So particularly when they were up in the Himalayas, he used to get a fantastic sky, a very clear sky with all the stars visible and all that. So I suppose from there that interest would have started. So he used to make these sort of blueprints of the movement of stars at different times of the year and things like that. So he tried to teach us that.
During his lifetime, he's also won several awards, notable among them being the Padma Shri. Laurie Baker is no longer with us, but his work lives on. His work will evolve through the housing needs of the poor, and it will speak to us as long as the common man is relevant. Does that mean forever? Yes, Baker's work, like him, is immortal.